Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thursday morning here in Melbourne. Nice and bright and sunny outside. Just thought I'd do another video on the T3M, but this time using the new, I classified as being the 2021 conversion, which came out of Team Power's Raceopt a couple of weeks ago. Pardon me, I do apologise. Now this is a step up from what the car was previously with the double motor mount assembly, which worked well, but it had some little limitations we had to work out, especially in the way of trying to get a lot of grip on low grip surfaces. It's worked. We figured out what we needed to do and how to do it to make it work, which was the best part of it. Now with this particular setup now, what's come out of it is this, the chassis. This is what it looks like once it's put together. It is a constant deck top. I'll take the battery out and show you some other stuff as well. Constant deck top, but it allows you a lot more clearance to be able to do your pinion and spur, and also routing wires and everything else associated trying to put a chassis together nice and neat. There's pictures of the chassis. This is mine of the chassis on my Facebook page, and everything that I've done to bring it up to this standard. One really good thing about this is, more than anything else, the motor mount. The motor mount itself is massive, one piece. The good thing about it is that now you can actually get to your pinion spur a lot easier. You can take the spur off the car a lot easier to change your spurs. And the biggest part of it that sort of makes it a good idea the way they've actually constructed is a lot of cars or a lot of chassis at the moment run a single shaft. So think about it as just a shaft coming out and then the spur sliding on with the idlers and just hanging off that one shaft. Even though it's meaty and it's bolted well, it has some limitations. Some cars have problems with the way they've designed it. Some cars find no issues. Some manufacturers find no issues. What the guys at TP have done though is the actual idler, spur gear and idler gear carriers is supported by a double mount like that. One part of it is fixed to the mount as solid. The other one is the bolt on. Once you've actually put the idler in, bolted up, solid support. No flex, no movement, no nothing. It stays there and it will not be impeded by a modified motor putting a lot of strain on it and possibly tweaking it a little bit. It's hard to say if there is a little bit of tweak there, but we know things happen, okay? Well, that's a really, really good idea. The other part of the mount, which I like a lot, and it's actually implemented on that, if you look carefully at the speed controller, motor and ESC, you can't see the ESC wire. It's not crossing over the motor as a lot of cars have to get to the receiver from the speed controller and stuff like that. It's actually routed underneath the mount and it doesn't pinch at all. The mounts are supplied as they are. There and there. They are supplied with some recess milled out between there and there. This section here is what touches the chassis, and you've got multiple holes to adjust your flex anytime. So super soft to super rigid, depends on what you want the car to do. And then on either side of it, it's actually recessed 1/2 mil, so it does not touch the chassis at all. Now we have a guy here in Australia that's an RC racer, but is also a really good machinist. He does aircraft machining of alloy parts for aircraft. Now it has to be precision on top of precision, only because it's going to aircraft and you don't want to stuff it up, obviously. So I've given him the mounts, and he's been able to take off this portion here, which is where the which is where the motor and speed control and everything else sits. He's been able to take 0.7, 0.8 mil off that. So from 0.5 mil, he's gone to 1.2 to 1.3 millimeter clearance, which allows pretty much any speed controller the wire to slip under the mount, and it does not impede the flex of the chassis because it's a very short area and it's very, very stiff across that area. So with the point of a driver, just literally when you get the speed controller on the car and you're running between the motor, which sits here, and the speed controller, which sits there, all we do is literally just push the wire in underneath. It's not forced, it's not pinched, it's not squashed, it's just pushed into place. That's it. And there's enough wire now on all of these ASCs, including 10 powers and some others, that all it does is creep underneath this point here, comes out just here, underneath, here we go, you can see, and straight into the receiver. No extra wires, don't have to add any wire to it. Absolutely brilliant. Keeps it nice and neat all the way through, and there's no chance of that wire coming in contact with the motor or the spur gear or the fan or anything else like that. Now, I'm not totally OCD, but I do like a neat setup, and this is just a neat, easy to work setup compared to some others where you can't see any wires at all. That's OCD. That does my head still, but it's good, but it makes your job nice and neat. Twisted sensor wire keeps it out of the way, not floppy all over the place. Short wires on your motor, short wires from your motor to there, that's running 14 gauge. 12 gauge, nah, doesn't make any difference. 14 gauge and wires underneath the deck to the battery section. So there are your two battery wires there. One, two, I keep them short so I can't cross them over and voltage polarity stuff up my ASC, which I've done a couple of times unfortunately. So that's the chassis. The biggest thing, apart from the motor mount, the number one thing that's changed is the top deck. The top deck now is one piece. Instead of being the two piece and double bolt, it's now double bolt, single bolt, double bolt, but one piece across the whole length of the top, which allows a lot more flex. Now the front has more flex than the rear. The rear is a bit rigid because of that stay there, but you can change the characteristics by putting little H brackets, if I call them that, onto the front and manipulate how the chassis does flex. This is a standard 2.2, but there is also that I'm bringing out a couple of versions available for tweaking. You can play around with it, whatever you want to do. There'll be 3 versions of this cut out by the Carbon Master down here, Paul. These will be in 1.6, Ultra Flex, 2 and 2.2. 2.2 would be great for high grip tracks where you don't want the chassis to roll too much, and that'll stiffen it up nicely. And then with a bit more bracing, it'll make it rock solid. So it depends on what you want to do, okay? 1.6 would be good for the really low grip stuff that we have sometimes at some venues where you just can't get any grip at all, and the softer the chassis is, the more grip it'll generate. Obviously playing with other settings in the car as well, that goes without saying. Now we've given the car and the chassis out to a couple of guys to play with and test the older version. I'm so happy with the feedback that I've gotten on this, and it's good for feedback. You can't just rely on your own experiences to try and figure out a problem, because you get clouded and you got to figure out what's going on. You're trying to overthink and everything else, but it's good to get feedback from other people to say it does this, change this, and it's worked really good. I've had Michael Clark and Jordan Cullis drive the car, the previous version, to this chassis, to this one, that it is now, and the car was awesome. In their words, car's so easy to drive, it's too safe, which is good. It means that, you know, a person like me can actually get the car around the track without too many problems. This new setup with the new deck and the new motor mount has proven to have a lot more rotation, so it does actually turn a lot more aggressively, which is good, which is what we need on really tight tracks. On big tracks, big flowy tracks, not more so. That's a case of just changing the parameters on the chassis. Top deck, spacing, roll centers, and all that type of stuff, which you can dial in and dial out what you want it to do. Also, choice of body on a big track is something you've got to look at. You know, the more high aggressive downforce bodies now, some people can't handle it, and they've got to go to something a lot more sedate, like Zuzilla or Preopard out of Zoo are good for low grip, for low rotation or tracks without a lot of grip. If you need a lot of rotation, you go to something like a Hellcat or not a Hellcat, Wolverine or mental blank. Wolverine is good. Anyway, you also got other bodies from other brands as well, like Blitz and Extreme and all that type of stuff that do the job nicely. And you choose the body to suit. This has a couple of options on it, which I've put together under my brand PITLANE. And they are options for me to play with the chassis to actually do what I want it to do. Okay? It's not something that you're going to buy or use because it's going to make the car better for you. Otherwise, you're going to choose what you want to do. The changes are with the top deck. I found that I raised my top deck on the older version of 2020, and I had a lot better feel on the car running the top deck higher by 1mm, which helped on low grip. It also helped on high grip to a point, but sometimes when you touch those corners of the car, traction rolled, which was not a good thing. Too much mechanical grip, side mechanical bite, so the car tended to traction roll if I touched corners. And being a corner hugger, I paid the price, and Nic Michaelides knows this. And to do that, we made spaces for the front and rear. Now the front and rear on these cars, both in the 2020 and this new one, I'd classify 2021, they're identical front and rear, so you can raise it, with a packet of these, you can actually raise it 0.5 mil, 1 mil, and then just add alloy spaces underneath the actual middle section here to allow it to be the same as the front and rear, so it can 0.5 or 1 mil. That'll give you more flex left and right. Okay, and as pointed out by Brian Stewart, the chassis on this, the top deck, is much lower. I think he said by about 2 mil or so, compared to an equivalent setup like an X-Ray. It's much lower, which makes the chassis really stiff, hence trying to make up the 1.6 and 2mm top decks to give it a bit more flex. So these little spaces just literally sit underneath pardon me, the top decks at the front and on the rear bulkheads, and it just lifts it up a little bit. They just sit there. Nice, easy, quick, easy installation. Works really well. The other one, because roll centers do my head in. I still get my head around trying to get these roll centers correct with spaces inside and outside, front and rear, and all that type of stuff. I'm lazy, and there's quite a fair few people that'll attest to that. I'd rather just go to the track, put the car on track, have a good day playing around with it, and the best I do. But roll centers still do my head in. So for me, and it's worked for a few other people, and it's been beneficial, especially on really high grip, because the car still generates a fair bit of mechanical grip, but to try and take that away, raise the roll center so the car doesn't want to roll too much to generate that mechanical grip, is these little suckers. They're basically spaces to go underneath the pivot balls to lift the car up. And all it does is lifts the front or rear or front, and you can change and swap it and change it what you want it to do. You will have to change, so you will have to adjust your droop and your ride height when you do put these into place. But they literally adjust as a spacer. And if you look at it carefully, there's, hold it that way, might be a bit better. There is a horizontal and a vertical cut. So how they go in is, all you do is undo the screws slightly. You don't have to go crazy and undo it all the way, just enough so it allows clearance. So then you push that underneath and literally swing it into place between the actual pivot balls and the chassis under here. And all that does is raises the roll center. So then the car becomes, especially on the rear, if you find you've got way too much mechanical grip on the rear, blah blah blah, takes away that mechanical grip very ever so slightly. Nice little things to do and play around with. It's good. It's an alternative instead of just doing the changes on here all the time. You got to realise though that it does drop the chassis and raises the roll center, so you've got to make sure that you do your drip and ride height straight after that. That's the chassis with other bits and pieces. The chassis itself, the conversion, which is the best part of it, comes in a packet with chassis, motor mount, top deck, brass weight, because the car is very, very light. Chassis is very light, car is very light. This is lighter than the standard 2020 version. The brass weight puts about 20 grams onto it, so you don't have to try and actually add so much weight on the car to bring it up to scratch. But what I found out with the R series, even with this conversion, is that the bladder shocks that come with the R3G and R3C are so short that you don't get enough droop on the cars, and that's running the towers that come as standard in these things, which are the standard towers, which will take the Raceopt, and I do like the Raceopt. Is we've gotten some towers cut out by Mr. Paul, which are literally 3 millimeters lower in height, mounting height, compared to the standard, and that's all it required. Just that extra 3 millimeter gave the car more droop, so you can adjust it a lot easier on your droop for low grip surfaces. And they're available in 3 millimeter, 3 or 4 millimeter, really thick, both glass and also carbon. So you can, and by the way, the actual towers will accommodate the rad shocks as well. It doesn't impede on those. It takes away the problem of the short bladder shocks. That's the issue. That's fixed that really quick and easy, and it's a quick fix for anyone that's got an R series car. Now the R series cars are also branded under the Hobby King brand, so they'll suit all of that as well. Pardon me, rough throat coffee. It is a good thing. So that's the chassis, and more than happy to sort of recommend this and accommodate people that are inquiring about it. Any question you have, ask, by all means, just ask. The best part of it, and this is me prattling on as usual, is the cost. The cost effectiveness of the chassis is awesome. All I've done on the chassis from one version to the other is just added the updates. From the T2 to the T3 was different, but the T3 series upwards, about 80% roughly just interchanges. That's the best part of it. The chassis is made so you can run either the pivot ball suspension or you can run the pin suspension with the alloy blocks. So that chassis will suit R3, G, C, Pro, T3M, T3M 2021, blah, blah, blah. That'll suit everything. And it's such an easy accommodation without spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars. It's different, but you've got to get used to it. Get different, accommodate yourself to it, learn the car, drive the car. They are available, and they are, I hate to say it, they're so cheap. They're half the price currently of anything that's on the market in the equivalent, how would you call it, category. Okay, it is pretty much all carbon and obviously a little bit of plastic and anodized alloy parts. Now, everything's product driven, but you make the choice. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for listening in on this bit of prattling, but it is to point out the actual benefits, or what we've come up on the actual chassis is that the motor mount is the best improvement they've done so far. Such an easy and quick change design, and solid as. There are a few more options that I'm working on with a couple other people to bring out for it, just to tweak up little bits and pieces on the chassis and parts in the car. Not big changes, just little things. Arms on these, for instance, are not the standard arms. They, especially on the rear, they're a fixed toe, so either 2, 2.5 or 3 mil fixed, and these run shoey balls, but this is an option. All right, out of the car, out of the chassis, it's supplied from Tim Powers Raceopt. The standard rear end is perfect, no issues. Quick, easy to adjust, keep it clean, no problems at all. This is just an option that I've made for myself because I hate fiddling around too much. Even though I fix a lot of cars, I want to try and take a lot of the work out when I go and race. I don't want to do a lot of stuffing around. I just want to play toy cars. So that's, I thought someone was here, bear with me. But that's the chassis. T3M with the conversion chassis installed. The new mount has the routing done to allow wide slip under. I get these done here, so anyone buying the chassis in Australia will have that as an automatic addition in the chassis. All option parts are here. The guys in the UK, Andrew Bird and his mates, are running the car on carpet, and they love it. They love it. They're cracking half to 1 lap better times than the equivalent guys running Mugans and X-rays and that type of stuff. He's proven a point. The car is awesome on carpet. Asphalt for them, because their tracks are so low grip, they are now having to figure out a solution for low grip. They're getting onto it, and it is a case of manipulating the flex in the car, and pretty much that's it. Not much more on top of that they've got to do. They're working on it this weekend to try and find a low grip setup for them. Here, we haven't been able to race. Lockdown has stuffed us up. Bad weather has stuffed up the people that have the chassis, that can run the chassis on low grip fast tracks. So we're waiting on a day that we can go out and have a play and throw some more setup sheets onto Petite RC. So every sheet that we make, we put over to Petite RC, so they can actually upload it to their site, so everyone can see the changes we do, what we've done for the track that we're running on, blah 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 and stuff like that. I'll keep you in tune on what's coming through. There's some exciting, well, I'd call it exciting for me though, there's some exciting news on the Raceopt that I'm working on to make the Raceopt mounting a lot more neater and a lot easier for everyone. The only drawback on the Raceopt, a lot of people have complained, is how they mount at the top. It is just a little bit of a tedious process. I've figured out, well, not I have figured out, I've seen a solution that can be applied to the top cap, which allow you to be able to take the shocks on and off a car quick and easy, with the least amount of fuss and one screw and no locking pin to hold it in place to take it off at all. Working on that now. Problem here in Australia is trying to find someone to be able to do some anodizing. Pain in the bum, real pain in the bum. So machining's not a problem, the anodizing is. So short of having to do hundreds of units to try and actually get it anodized, I'll see what I can do to get some shocks in the car that make it easy to come off. Thanks very much for your time. Enough prattling on. Enjoy your day. Have a look at the car. There'll be links here or there or that type of stuff. Go into the pages where the car is. See what you reckon. If you've got a question, by all means, send us a line. A WhatsApp or Messenger is the quickest way to get onto me. If I don't reply, it's only because I've missed it, and I will get back to you as quick as possible. So leave a message. I will get back. Take care, everyone. Have a good day. Enjoy your time. It is a nice blue Thursday morning, and I've got to go and do some real work now. Take care, guys. Have fun. Ciao for now.